This is a tutorial on working within a SAS environment that you start with a development folder or an area where you develop your SAS programs, and then after you finish validating it, you would promote it to a production area. So let's say, for example, I have this folder called dev. Normally this is a study or working area where you have your SAS programs, related input data sets, output reports. You may have some other folders. Let me delete this one. I was just testing. So when you develop this program and debug it, for example, this example program, open it up. It may be, reading in an Excel file. It may be reading in other data sets. This is just an example data set called shoes. So in order for this one to run well, you have to have those inputs in order for it to run. So let me close out of that. I won't save it. And then once you validate and everything works well, I'll show you the fact that the input data sets and Excel files are here. So if you want to promote this to a production area, the manual method would be, to copy it or drag and drop from the development area into a production area like this. So you would create another, it could be even another server, but essentially another folder where you would have your production version of the program. Of course, you have to go back to the development area and also copy the related input data sets in order for that program to run. So if I were to go back here to the production area, and then actually it's not here, it has to be under another input folder like this. And then once you, this is the manual way of promoting it from development to the production. And then of course you can run this program in order for it to produce any outputs. And lastly, you would need to change the permissions from after everything's done to read only. What this does is it ensures that this production version has been fully promoted and put into like a locked production status. That way you don't accidentally change it because it's considered production and it's read only. So if I go back to the properties, it's read only. If someone tries to open it and they try to edit it in some kind of editor, notice that I can't edit that. My editor is saying that this is a read-only file. So that's the general approach towards, in fact, if I have permissions, I can delete it, but normal other users would not be able to make changes to that file. So let me clean that up. That would be the manual way of doing it, which can be time consuming and you may forget a step. But let me show you another way in a macro that I developed along with this tool I call dev to prod. So what this tool does is it allows you to, through this user interface, select the folder where you have your development program. So let's say I have it here. And then notice that after I select the folder, it automatically lists all the programs from that folder. So I would select the specific program. I can actually select more. In fact, I can select all. And then I also have to decide what the production folder location is located at. And then lastly, I have these two options here, one of which is to execute or run the program. So after it copies from the source or development into the destination production, it will then run that program. Of course, it has to have the smarts to copy the associated input files that we talked about. So this program will actually parse the program logic and figure out that there are related input files, promote or copy those as well before running it. Now after it finished running the program, it also sets it to read only. That's in this case we're running on Windows, so there's a Windows command that sets the files, like the program files, to read only. And there's an additional option that if you want, you can have the results emailed to yourself or a team member. So you can have multiple email addresses here. What it will do is after it finishes promoting everything, it will send you an email notifying the result of that run, indicating any errors or successes if it's completed. So let me go ahead and run that. If I click OK, essentially it's going to run a series. It's actually a macro, but it runs a series of commands that promotes, and it's actually executing, running the program now, and it's doing that email. So in essence, we did all the things that we would have done manually, in that it took it from the development folder here, including the related input data sets or files, and then it copies it over to the production area. One thing to note is that it retains the date time stamp. So notice that the input files were originally in January, and then the program itself was also January. But of course, when I run it, the newly created log and any outputs is in March, which is now. So this is one of the things you want to make sure is that when you promote it, you don't lose the original date time stamp of the file. And then, of course, you do the same with the related input files, retaining the original date time stamp. And then after you execute it, it produces the log and related output files. It also sends you an email. So let me show you an example email. Captures essentially what's in the log of of that file, and then it just describes briefly that it ran or it promoted a file from a development location to a production area, what the program was, and then any errors or successes that appears in the SAS log. In this case, it ran without any errors, so there's all success notes there. So that's an automated way of doing a task that could be cumbersome, and maybe if you were to do it manually, you may miss a step. But the general idea is that you would promote or copy files of programs and related input files from a development area to a production area, and then execute or run it in the production area to make sure everything's working. Set it to read-only permission after it's finished, and optionally you can email or notify the end result after it's finished.